Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the Ethics of Wholesaling. I'm very excited, very honored to have this rockstar crew, these guests with me. My name is Brady Winder. I'm your host. I'm with the Carrot team, and we're going to be talking about the ethics of wholesaling and why we're going to be talking about the hard subjects and why wholesaling and wholesalers get such a bad reputation, and hopefully shed some light on a few people who are doing it really well and also making a healthy living while doing it. And so, for quick context, if you missed part one, you can go back to listen to the Carrot Cast podcast. We did that on our Carrot Summit back in March. You can catch that whole conversation. But this is part two. We're just going to elaborate some more and talk about, things like, should wholesalers choose their salary? What are guidelines? Should we have more regulation? And we're going to educate people on how wholesaling works, and especially agents. We have a lot of agents, investors, hybrids in our audience, and we know you guys want to learn more too. And so we're going to kick it off, dive in. I'm going to moderate and let these beautiful people do the talking. That being said, welcome everybody. How's it going?
Good.
Amazing.
Great.
That's awesome. We're hanging in there. We got some East Coasters, some Central people. It's late in the evening here. Let's go around. Let's do some real quick intros, and then we'll talk about, we'll get into the ethics of wholesaling. We'll go left to right. Adam Mitchell from Texas. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Brady. Thanks for having us. I'm Adam Mitchell, owner of Home Buying Guys here, based in Dallas, Fort Worth. My partner Lance is on here with us. We wholesale. We are also agents. We flip houses, so we do all those three things. We basically cover our market is all of Texas and all of Oklahoma, so we focus on those two states. And we do a lot of wholesaling, especially in the virtual markets that we're not in. Houston, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and we're doing about 80 transactions a year right now, and that's what we do.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining. Keith Sant, Mr. Kind House Buyer from Tacoma. What's up?
What up? Yeah. Well, you just introduced me. Yeah. Keith Sant, owner of Kind House Buyers, live up in Tacoma. And I wholesale, buy and hold, couple flips, not an agent. And I do a lot of virtual wholesaling. I got really good at marketing, and I do a lot of JV deals with people all over the country.
Awesome. Jamil, what's up?
How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm so excited for this.
Great to be here.
Yeah. What do you do? Where are you from?
Well, I'm the short version. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in Canada and born in LA, so put that together. But I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I am the co-founder of Keegley. We are a nationally franchised wholesale operation. Currently, we are in 118 markets. We have 118 different franchises.
Wow.
And my corporate stores are located in Arizona, Florida, and Texas. Our corporate markets, we do on average anywhere between 60 to 80 transactions a month. And overall in our franchises, it's hundreds a month. So I'm got my finger on the pulse of how wholesale has evolved, how it continues to evolve. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about it.
Awesome. And for quick context, we had this conversation on ethics of wholesaling back in March, like I was talking about. And right after that, I was like, man, we ran out of time. We got to finish the conversation. We could talk about this for days. And then it was probably a few days after that, I was on YouTube, and Jamil Damji pops up and is on Bigger Pockets podcast, the ethics of wholesaling. And I thought, this is just perfect timing. So pleasure to have you on, man.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Christina, how you doing?
Good. I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Doing good. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, my name is Christina Kudlock. I live in the Phoenix market, but I do all of my I'm primarily a wholesaler. And our main market is in Los Angeles, but we're wholesaling kind of virtually. We'll do deals as they come, and we get random stuff in random states all the time. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's amazing. One thing I'm just now realizing is that like everybody is from very competitive markets. We got Phoenix, Dallas, LA, Tacoma. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Lance, welcome, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah. What's up, man? Thanks for having us again. And
Adam kind of hit the nail on the head on introducing us. I'm Lance Doty, the other home buying guy. I always tell people I'm a little bit taller, a little bit chubbier than Adam, so they know which one I am on the logo. But no, only thing Adam didn't quite cover, and I think it hits ethics hard, is we operate the hybrid model that Carrot has coined that term and made it so famous. So when leads come in, we've got a team that makes my calendar, and from there, in Dallas Fort Worth, our main market, I'm the first line of defense of helping sellers make that decision. Retail, wholesale. And so that's one thing about home buying guys. I didn't quite mention, we do lead and operate through the hybrid model. So excited to have this conversation through that lens. So I know it's something that Trevor, is, and Carrot's a big fan of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us. I feel like that is hopefully for all of us, like at the bare minimum of like how to do this business ethically. It's not about wholesaling the business. It's about helping people with their house problems, and it's about helping people out. And so, anyways, that being said, thank you for joining us. Anybody listening to this after the fact in the podcast, I'm sorry you missed the live version. If you are watching live with us on YouTube or Facebook, put your questions in the comments. We'll be answering them live. And anything you have, whether you're a wholesaler or you're not a wholesaler, I don't care. If you just want to learn more about this industry, or if you have a question that you've been wrestling with, you're a wholesaler, like, I don't know how to handle the situation, put in the comments, because these guys and gals have been investing for a long time. They're seasoned and they know their stuff. So it's a great opportunity to learn from them. That being said, I'm going to kick it off, and we'll just kind of, whoever feels like they want to answer, go ahead. We'll be talking over each other a little bit, not a big deal. And let's just have a conversation. Kick it off. Should wholesalers choose their salary, and what are your guidelines for how much to make? I brought this up, this was like one of the first questions in my mind after listening to Jamil talk about this on Bigger Pockets, about arbitrary salaries, or being able to make such a wide spread or such a small spread on a deal. Somebody want to kind of give their take on that, and maybe even how that compares to agents, how agents get their salary?
So salary, are you talking like a percentage of a sale then at that point?
I guess I
became an entrepreneur because I didn't want anyone to choose a salary for me. Like, I wanted to be able to, eat what I kill. If I want to work till 5 a.m., all night long, I want to reap the benefits. If I'm going to slack off, I pay the consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily unethical, but that's just my point of view. Like, I don't want anyone to choose my salary. So.
And one thing too, you mentioned everyone on this call is from such competitive markets, right? And so honestly, for us, and how, the buyer is so much more sophisticated and educated now with the cash, from the iBuyers, we're all competing, and so very most of the time the opportunity dictates the spread there, right? I mean, very few times. I can only think of one time actually in probably 250 transactions we've done where I got to make a decision on that. It's usually made for us, and we have our minimums, and then we have our deals that we still talk about to this day. Like, I can't believe we made that much, but it's never a decision of the opportunity usually presents, what spread is in it, whether it's a $5,000 deal and we just got to get it done and it pays for another batch of leads, or we're making, 65, 70 grand because, seller needed out quick, and we were able to give them everything they wanted at that price. And it was a zip code that our cash buyers were willing to battle for. And it just bid up,
Interesting. Jamil, Christina, what's y'all's take on how do you structure your deals, and what your fee needs to be when you're wholesaling?
Yeah, well, usually when we do, like when we're getting ready or we're putting an offer together to present to someone, we usually calculate a fee at $20,000, and that's just based off like the market. And in some smaller markets, you'd probably go for a lot less, but that's if we usually don't have a baseline of what the seller wants, and we're having to make an offer without knowing somebody else's, what somebody else is looking to get for their property. But I think Lance really hit it on the head that oftentimes the just what's going on in the competition that is going after that deal really can kind of dictate. There's very few instances where you're able to get in and just set your price. That'd be nice, but it usually just kind of gets down to our equation that we do is for calculating $20,000 each deal. And I will say that the ones that we have gotten that we make a lot less on, like anything that we've made $5,000 or less on, they're the worst deals. They take the most time. They open you up to the most different kinds of like lawsuits where people are just, it's not, and not from anything that you've done wrong, but just from people who, you know, every sellers that every dollar counts, or from a buyer that just things, there's just so many more opportunities for things to go wrong. And those slim deals just, I can think of like 3 slim deals in the last year that I just wish I didn't do, that weren't worth it at the end of the day. So
I hear you. Well, and you're taking on a massive risk too. And you know, I'm not totally on board with the analogy of like, you know, the bigger the problem you solve, the more you get paid, because there's a lot of professions where it doesn't work out that way. But I think it might have come from the podcast you were on with Bigger Pockets, Jamil. Anyways, one of the things I'm curious about, like, how does this compare to agents? Because some people would argue that like, agents getting paid a fixed percentage based on doing sometimes the same amount of work per transaction, you know, on a $200,000 house versus a $1.5 million house is not how it should be. Jamil, what are your thoughts on that? Oh, I froze up. He's got so excited. Bear with us one sec here.
Yeah,
we'll wait for him to kick back in.
Or the StreamYard, because I'm wired in here, so I'm not on.
Oh, I think you're coming back now. Try again, Jamil. See if we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, you guys hear me okay?
It's almost there. Not quite.
Here. I don't understand.
Okay, we can hear you now. Let's try it.
Okay. I'll try this, but I want to make the distinction between a real estate agent and, you know, wholesale. First and foremost, I see wholesale as an exit strategy. Right? Wholesaling is not. I'm not like wholesale. I'm looking at wholesale as, what am I going to do here? Am I going to flip this house? Am I going to buy and hold this house? Am I going to take this house down to gate so I can mitigate my wholesale this property? I'm my opportunity. I'm going to determine what I want to do with this property, and I'm going to take whatever potential I see in this deal. And if I decide to wholesale it, that means I'm selling a small portion of my potential to somebody else to go realize that potential. That's it. Wholesaling is an exit strategy. So let's remind ourselves that as wholesalers, we're not wholesaler. When you wholesale, you're not a wholesaler. You're a real estate investor who might wholesale as an exit strategy, first and foremost. Secondly, real estate agents are fiduciaries. Okay, their job is to work as the fiduciary for whichever representative party they have in a deal. So you're a buyer's agent, you are a fiduciary to your buyer. If you are a seller's agent, you have fiduciary duty to your seller. And that's why they have these fixed percentages allocated to them, because their job is to get the buyer the best price possible and the seller the most money possible. That's their job, right? When I'm an investor, it's my job to make as much effing money as I can possibly make, because I have shareholders, I have staff, I have overhead. I've got things that I've got to do as a company owner to make money. That's why that's important. And so, no, I don't think it's at all. You can't take the two things and say they're the same thing. We're not brokering deals here. I'm an investor and I'm here to make money.
Right.
And I'm going to try to realize as much money as I can possibly make in a deal, because that's why I'm here. See, this is why I'm buying this in an LLC, because LLCs, they're formed to make money, not charities. I'm not buying this in a charity. I'm buying this in an LLC, in a company, in a holding company, whatever that is. I'm here to profit. And it's my job to profit as much as possible, not as minimum as possible, as much as possible. So with that said, No, I don't think it's at all sensible that wholesalers have a set fee, because we're not here acting as fiduciaries. We're here as principals in a deal whose exit strategy is to sell a portion of my potential for a quick exit.
Yep.
That's it.
I like that. That's a good explanation. I got a question. If you could have your way right now and decide what the ideal scenario would be for like the balance of, I guess, the ratio of like agents and investors that there are in America, what do you think the best solution is for like buyers and sellers? Would you like to see more of a hybrid model like Adam and Lance are doing, where, you know, they do both? Or is it investors are going to win in the long term and everybody's an investor, everybody can wholesale as an exit strategy? Or is it, you know, maybe agents should get more creative and start investing? What do you think that looks like, or would you like to see it like 10, 15, 20 years from now?
I mean, I personally think the hybrid model is the most efficient way to go. It gives sellers the most opportunity to pick a lane and figure out what's the best solution for them personally. And if you're able to, you know, to offer all those solutions to a seller, you're going to be the one that's standing at the end, you know, with the contract, you know, and you're going to be the one making the money. So, I mean, I think it's been great for us. You know, we don't necessarily lead with a cash offer. We lead with, what do you need? And let's see if we can help you get there. And then we'll take you down that path, whether that's a cash offer or whether that's listing your house, or a lot of times we'll go in and do the remodel for you, and then we'll list your house and you pay us back at closing. So there's a lot of opportunities that open up when you can do both, and you can kind of do some things in between, you know, the cash offer and the listing that we've been able to take advantage of. And it's worked out really well for us.
Yeah. And to Jamil's point, you know, we're there obviously, you know, as we're there just to be a resource, right? But I'm there as a steward to our business, right? And, you know, we look at our marketing budget every month, you know, it's 15, 25, 30,000 a month. And when before we had the hybrid capability, I was a cash offer only guy. And, you know, 98% of our leads weren't cash offer opportunities. And so how do I take what we've already spent in marketing, this lead, this opportunity, this sweet family who's already, I've already won them over, but this is not a cash offer deal. There's no urgency. There's no motivation. The house is in great shape. You know, they just don't want to use their brother-in-law as a realtor. So they called me, you know, so how do I, as an agent and steward to our business, to keep this thing going another month, which that's how this thing started. It was just going a month at a time, you know, you know, and how do I cash out on this thing? And we that's when we added the retail side, because we felt the more options we gave sellers in such a competitive market, we separate ourselves.
I like that. I like, Jamil, what you had said, and a couple of you had said it about how like you're an investor, you're there to make as much money as possible. You're there to make money. And so I feel like almost wholesaling or investors can get unfairly compared to, I mean, pretty much any other, you know, for-profit business in that way, as the businesses are there to make money as well. But people aren't ragging on businesses every day. Maybe large corporations, but it's not like, oh, every business is out to get me. Well, they're there to make money because, like you said, they have things to do as well. Yeah.
You know, Brady, I like to think of this in terms of like every business has a wholesale step up. Okay. Like I go to McDonald's, right? I go buy a Big Mac. Let's look. Started at a.
I heard Big Mac.
No. Oh man, I'm like on the edge of my seat waiting for the story. Jamil, it cut out. Hopefully,
Am I back?
Okay, you're back now. Yeah. When the video gets blurry, your audio gets better.
Children are streaming on. Turn off the game. Like so, this super. Every business has a wholesale step up, right? So you might pay $6 for it at McDonald's, but at some point that chuck was like 10 cents. Now tell me, let me ask you the question here. Is McDonald's unethical because they sell a Big Mac for $6? No, it's not. It's business has a wholesale step up. It happens. There is a process of adding value throughout that entire business. And just as just every house is going to be a cash situation. Not every house is going to be price, urgency, timeline, condition. It's not all going to fit the bill. And so I think that whatever the retail real estate agents that have an issue with wholesalers, they don't have an issue with wholesaling as a business strategy. What they are having issues with, or what the public has issues with, is all of the lies, all of the deception that wholesalers have been practicing out there, all of the bait and switch, all of the not putting down earnest money, not closing on the deal, not showing up on closing day and fulfilling our obligation. Like, it's the BS that people are.
100% agree with him.
Yeah,
Absolutely. What I recognize this might be an odd question going to a group of wholesalers, but what do you feel like wholesaling should be, or investors should be more regulated, like you have on the agent side? Is there anything you think needs to be in place to maybe like for these newer wholesalers, people who aren't following up or following through and closing on a deal? Do you feel like regulation might help fix some of those things, or do you want to see just government not get their hands in it?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of licensed agents do a lot of unethical things, and the NAR didn't do anything about it. The Department of Licensing didn't do anything about it. Like, their managing broker didn't do anything about it, right? Like, you got to have some type of, incentive to actually, or some kind of teeth. But how would you regulate it? Like, at what point? Like, again, does it come to like choosing a salary? Like, who are they to say what our salary should be and how much value we add in a transaction? Like, I just can't see anything like that working. Yeah, they're bad apples, but there's bad apples in every industry, every industry. And I just try to, Trevor says, be a lighthouse and just try to, do the right thing.
Yeah, and how do you enforce all that? I mean, are you gonna go to court and have to dig up, phone records and texts and all that on each transaction? I mean, our court system would be bogged down for years trying to prosecute. So how does that all really work? I think the key is education, and really, with the iBuyers coming in the last 2 or 3, 4 years in a way that's been so public and so broad, like Lance said, it has increased the knowledge base for a lot of sellers, I think, across the country, more than I've ever seen. And, I think that level of knowledge is sort of forcing wholesalers to be better at what they do, because, the general public is a little more educated than they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And that's what we need. We need education. We need to educate, the average consumer on what it does look like the right way, and then take them down that path so they experience the proper way it should be done, so that they have a good experience and they tell your friends about it,
Which is a huge part of adding value, is educating people on the process so they know how it works, so they understand the value you're getting. And at that point, the transaction, the dollar amount makes sense.
Sure.
What are you going to say, Heath?
I have a contrary view to this. And I know that I get ragged on by other wholesalers for having this point of view. I would embrace a licensing test for this purpose only, not to tell us how much we get to make, not to hit us with all these extra fees and whatnot, which I know that we're going to end up having to pay. But why I want the educational process is first and foremost so that wholesalers that are brand new get an understanding of what's legal versus what's not legal, right? Let's understand equitable interest. Let's understand contract law. Let's understand what the purpose of an earnest money deposit is. Let's understand what it means to have fair business practice and not be deceptive in the things we're saying. Let's understand. Let's come into this. Like, look, I just recently was in a transaction. I bought a vehicle from a dealer and I overpaid. I'm the only guy, I think, who overpaid for a car. No, I'm not the only guy who overpaid for a car in 2022. I'm like everybody else who overpaid for a car in 2022. But I then turned around like 2 days after buying this vehicle and I sold it because I hated it. It was a big jacked up Jeep, and I don't do jacked up vehicles. I just didn't know that at the time. So I buy this jacked up monster Jeep. I hate it. Drive it 10 minutes. I hate it. I go back to the dealer and I say, I don't want it anymore. So the guy's like, oh, really? Well, you've already bought it. So now I've got to resell it. The same guy. Okay. Same situation. I pay $20,000 more for it than what he's able to sell it for, what he buys it back from me a couple of months later. Was there anything unethical there? No, not at all. I was willing to pay this certain amount of money, and then I was willing to sell it for a certain amount of money for the convenience that I took. Every person who goes and trades their car in knows that the dealer is going to turn around and make a profit on it. How does it make any difference? The difference is the dealer's required to get a license so that they know what's legal, what's not legal. I think that's what we got to do in wholesale. We got to know what's legal, what's not legal. You got to teach these little kids that are coming out, learning from YouTube. Okay, they go download a contract and they start knocking on doors, I saw a deal just transpire in Phoenix the other day. This crew of door knockers went out, got a pre-foreclosure, bought it, closed it $20,000. Okay, the next day sold it to another wholesaler for $300,000. The next day, that wholesaler sold it to me for $307,500, and then I wholesaled it again for $320,000. Look, this is so what those kids did at knocking at and buying for $20. Look, if they didn't use deceptive practices, and if they did it all by the book, then congratulations. But something tells me they lied to these people. Something tells me they didn't do this by the book. So those kids need to get a license so that they understand that when they're knocking on doors, they've got to use fair business practice so that they're not ripping people off.
That's quite the spread. That's great. I don't even know what to say to that. That's just crazy.
But I do agree with you. I think there should be some sort of education program, licensing. I don't know if it needs to be exactly what realtors are in for, but it needs to be something. I totally agree.
So here's a question that came in the chat, which is 100% applicable. This is kind of a hot topic, and I'm curious to see how y'all handle this. Y'all can't see the comments, but I can on YouTube. Someone saying, when starting wholesaling, how forthcoming were you that you were reselling to someone else? And I think another way to ask that might be, do you bring it up with the seller? And if they do bring it up, or if it comes up, how do you explain that to them?
I'd love to. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm just gobbling here, but I got so much to say about this.
So your internet's good, so we'll let you. It's back.
Okay. And then I'll stop talking. So first, my exit strategy is nobody's damn business. Okay. If I have to disclose, I'm going to disclose. I'm an LLC. And if you need to know, I might develop, I might fix and flip, I might sell to an LLC, I might transfer to an LLC, I might transfer it to another LLC for depreciation. I don't know. That's the purpose of my inspection period. That's the purpose of me running my numbers and doing my due diligence. So yes, there should be a blanket disclosure that tells people that you may resell. But again, I was in a deal with D.R. Horton. Okay, I bought 4 acres of land in Phoenix, Arizona. I was in contract on these 4 acres of land, and then I sold to D.R. Horton. Okay, I wholesaled to D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton's a national home buyer, publicly traded company. They bought 4 acres of land from me and wholesaled 2 of them. They used the proceeds from the 2 to buy the 2 that they bought from me. So they bought that land for nothing. Where's the outrage?
Right.
Where's the outrage?
Yep.
So when someone does find out, let's say a seller finds out how much you're making, let's say, I guess I don't want to use the example that you gave out of the $20,000 foreclosure, because that's just crazy. But somebody finds out you're making like a reasonable, respectable, like a fair wholesale fee off their house. How do you explain that to them? Just straightforward, so they still understand the value. What do you tell them?
I explain exactly what it is. I explained that they found me because I spend about $20,000 a month in marketing for people just like you to call me, raise your hand for a cash offer on your home. And so I was like, now, and I don't know, typically to Jamil's point, I don't know what our exit strategy is every time, but I will kind of cover the basis, right? I mean, I'm either going to flip it or wholesale it, 95% of the time. But I explained it. I'm like, wholesaling is basically investors don't want to spend the marketing dollars and the time hustling to every one of these houses to find a flip. So they rely on wholesalers like me who spend the marketing dollars, for their flips. And that's actually how we became a wholesaler. We bought our first flip from a wholesaler. We're like, wait a minute, that's awesome, And I typically, to Jamil's point, it's not that if I do disclose it, it's because I know exactly what we're going to do there, and and it's just about setting that expectation, because we're still a smaller company. So I'm in bed with this seller until they sign, right? And y'all know how tricky that can be, right? It's a wild 14 to 21 day ride, and so I do disclose it in some regard. But even when I do disclose it, I've got some awesome partners that are looking to buy in this area. So I'll be bringing them by next Tuesday at 1:00, and that's 2 days before our option expires. But that's usually just to make sure, I'm not buying a house that's on top of an Indian burial ground, and they've got no problems with that. And now my access is built in, which we now put in the contract. That's a new thing we've added this year. The special provisions gives us access to the property, certainly in a certain time period. But the disclosure is easy. Just explain to people what it is. I mean, and it's the inexperienced guys that don't do that. And they don't have the confidence to understand their place in the market. They don't have the confidence to understand their value to the seller. And so they hide it. And then that's the, then they buy it wrong, and then they back out, and then the reviews, and then the industry is where it is. But we just do it all up front.
I think that's the simplest, one of the best ways to put it is like, you keep everything open and honest. Just tell them exactly what it is. Don't try and wordsmith it. Don't try and make it pretty. You tell them what it is. Or like Jamil, you said, well, I don't know. I don't know what I don't need to know. I might do something with it, might keep it, whatever. But if you're going to tell them, just say it straightforward.
And when you write your contract, and you put, most of us here are in states where you have to write your name, whatever your buying entity is, and or assignee, and or nominee, and or designated entity. Guys, I disclosed it in line 1 of the contract. Again,
yeah.
Are you not reading this? It says Keegley and or assignee, meaning Keegley may buy this, they may assign it. First line of the contract, disclosure over, move on.
Right.
And we don't really, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, we don't get a lot of pushback on that. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, we had probably more questions come up on what we were going to do and what the exit strategy. Those questions, maybe it's because you put it out there so early on that it's not an issue anymore. But I feel like there's less issue with that today than there ever has been. Is that accurate? Would you say?
The only time it's tricky, and I was going to bring this up, and I'll ask Christina, because we've been talking all over her. But the only time that I ever get cornered on that question is if it's early in the appointment and I haven't really I haven't built rapport. I'm showing up to a situation that's way more competitive than I realize, and they just kind of want to brass tacks this thing, right? And they'll be like, "You're not going to wholesale this thing, are you?" And it's almost like not a fair question, because it's loaded. It's loaded for them because they're emotionally attached to wholesaling. So I will skirt around. I won't answer it directly in that regard, because it's not a fair question, because you're only asking it to try to disqualify or qualify me when I haven't even qualified you yet, really. So. Christina, do you get that a lot? Like, you'll show up, or you're setting an appointment, and they're like, "Are you going to close on this?" And that's the only time. Now, if I have a contract, I have no problem disclosing all that. But if it just seems there's a point in time where they try to put you on your heels with it, and I don't know, that's the only time it comes up.
Yeah, and sometimes when people use it's usually my experience when somebody is asking you, "Are you going to wholesale it?" Especially straight right off the bat, it's like, oh, you've obviously had a negative experience with a wholesaler before.
Right.
So you can almost use it as a bonding topic too. Oh, yes. Why, what happened? And it sounds like you talked to a shitty wholesaler, right? And it gives you an opportunity to even build rapport and see what their past experiences have been in with their house. But half the time I wouldn't say half the time, but more often than not, we are pretty straightforward that we are wholesaling something, and we almost kind of use it as a like a negotiation strategy. Like if you're going to get an offer from us, we're going to have to be a lot lower. But I do have a wide, a network of other buyers who might be able to buy this a lot higher at the price you're trying to get. So that gives us a really just a clear pathway to let them know that we will, like, if we're going to do it at this price that you want to, it's still a price we know we can wholesale at, but it opens that conversation for like, okay, so just so you know, if we're going to do this, then we're going to be sending all of our buyers through, and it just sets a really clear understanding of how the rest of the deal is going to go, because that's a lot of just to answer the person's question before, talking about like when you're newer, how you're navigating that was for me like a huge issue too. It's like, well, how am I going to get all my buyers? And so if you just if that is where you're struggling at, then being upfront and honest about the fact that, yeah, I am wholesaling it, and that's why I do need access to the property, because especially if you're working with a seller that lives there, how are you going to get your buyers in, right? Without being straightforward right off the bat. Otherwise it just, it's going to create a mess later on in the deal.
And you nailed it. When they're asking me that up front and that loaded, it's because they've had a bad experience. And that's exactly how I deflect is, why have you had a bad experience before,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go into it. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I wholesale a ton, but here's how we would have handled that.
Right. Exactly. And how you could do it differently and better.
Right.
There's a phrase in marketing called make your skeletons dance, the skeletons in your closet, and you're using what people would see as negative to your benefit and saying, hey, look, and just being open and upfront about it. And in this case, it's not the skeletons in your closet, it's the skeletons in the closet of the wholesale and real estate investing industry, and saying, hey, I like that, oh, you worked with a bad wholesaler. Well, you have me instead.
Right.
I like that.
Sometimes it's not that they, oh, sorry. Sometimes it's not that they worked. There's this girl around here, and if she gets a call from a seller before the seller calls me, she always says, and make sure they're not a wholesaler. These guys that are trying to sign the contract, and they're not the real buyers, but we're the real buyers. And so then I've gotten calls like that, like, are you a wholesaler? And oh yeah, we talked to so-and-so over at Homebest, or we buy the houses. And I'm like, a wholesaler? Like, I just play stupid. Well, but I'm not lying. I just, mirror back, right? And then, like, you're not the actual buyer. I'm like, no, I want to buy a house. That's why I did marketing. That's why you're calling me to buy a house. Right. And, once I get there, I could talk about some other stuff later. But yeah, there's a lot of people doing that, scorched earth kind of stuff out there as well.
Yeah. I was just watching a podcast episode with Steve Treng yesterday, Scorched Earth. You know all about that, Jamil. Let's go back to that example of the kids wholesaling the $20,000 house, the foreclosure. When a seller doesn't understand what they have, and I mean, like, not when they're really motivated and they're like, I just want to get rid of it, I don't care, but when they truly don't understand, if they're sitting on a gem and they don't, they're okay with getting 20 and they don't realize it's a $300,000 house. What's your responsibility as the investor? I keep wanting to say wholesaler, and I'm like, oh, Jamil said I can't say wholesaler; it's an investor.
I think it's a phenomenal question, Brady, because like let's look at this from the point of view of any business, right? What's the responsibility of the person buying? Look, here's the thing. My highest and best use for a property might be different from Christina's. It might be different from Adam's, Lance, Keith. We all might have a different highest and best use. So highest and best use is going to determine the potential. Potential is going to determine what my gap is. My gap is going to determine what my wholesale fee is going to be. So that's how I'm looking at any deal. So I was in a deal that it was on an acre of land in one of the most prime areas of Phoenix, Arizona, called Arcadia. Christina will be familiar with it. So there's this mansion sitting on an acre, listed on the MLS, 6 months sitting there. Nobody wants to buy it. Why? Because the house is beautiful, but this guy had customized it for his wife who died right after they finished construction of the house. So he was emotionally attached. There's all this stuff with the house. Now, everybody is looking at this house as it's a mansion that is super custom and nobody wants. I'm looking at the house that it's sitting on an acre of land and it's got great zoning. And so I saw the highest and best use of demolishing the mansion. Nobody wanted to demolish. Nobody even thought of demolishing the mansion. So the house sits on the market for 6 months. I come in, I look at it, I say, knock that sucker down. Let's get this to raw land. And this thing is worth 1.5. So what happens? Sits on the MLS forever. I go and contract it at $900K. I wholesale it for $1 million. So I make $100,000. Okay. Developer comes, knocks it down, builds houses. He then goes and makes a couple $1 million on his exit on the deal. So again, the person who understands what to do doesn't make that person evil, wrong, or opportunistic. It makes them understand their business better than anybody else, which is the reason why they make the money they make, why they're even in that profession. So I think it's irresponsible for us to sit here and say, you only get to make this much money. You only get to make this much money. You should only make this much money if I can see a higher and better use. And now, if the person that I'm doing business with doesn't have the knowledge that I don't have, that's life. I'm sorry. You know what? If I want to go and operate on myself, if I'm sick, I don't get to just cut myself up and like do the things. Why? Because I'm not a doctor. I've got to go and pay the guy who went to school for however many years to do the job because they've got a knowledge base that I don't have. You know, we're just not looking at this in the right way. And it's because so many people have just looked at this and it's NAR getting angry because taking business away from real estate agents. So they got super vocal about it. Okay. But facts are facts, guys. Business is business. And the person who has the higher base of knowledge is going to understand the highest and best use. And so good for you. Right. Make your money.
And that's one of the things that's kind of popped in my head this whole time. And I hadn't even thought about it since the last time we did this exact episode is these things just don't come up. And the only time they ever come up is if you're talking to a real estate agent who's been trained to think one way or has been, man, I really like you, but man, I'm supposed to not like wholesalers. Or how do you get away with doing X, Y, and Z when you can do this, this, this? And I'm like, well, I mean, here's why. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know, so it honestly, none of this stuff really, I mean, it's we're good people first. You know, we treat everyone, whether it's a business transaction or pumping gas at the gas station, the same way. But so a lot of this stuff, it's really just to Jamil's point, like it's the real estate crowd, the realtor crowd being very vocal about, you know, losing a little bit of market share to folks who, you know, would like to work with people in a different way, you know, to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you're a seller focused, right. And if you're doing the things to help the sellers, you know, achieve their goal, you know, that's really all that matters. We had a lady, we went in and comped a property. It probably comped at $450,000, $500,000. We go in, the lady says, I want $150 for this house and I'm out tomorrow. Lance and I looked at each other and we said, deal, let's sign it. We made $100,000 wholesale in that house. We don't do that every day, but that's all she needed. That's all she wanted. She didn't say she needed $1 more and she was out. She was super happy. I think she's giving us a referral and we made $100,000 on it. And it just is what it is. We knew where we were at and we helped her get where she needed to go down the road and everybody wins. And that's what we're looking for are opportunities for everybody to win. Sometimes we win big, sometimes we win a little bit, you know, but at the end of the day, that's why we're in this business.
Yep.
I like that, being seller focused. And I like how you said you're meeting their goal. You're not meeting your goal to make a certain amount. You're meeting their goal. And so like Jamil, in this case with the mansion, it sounds like their goal wasn't to make as much money as possible. It wasn't get me the highest dollar amount. It was like, probably needed to get rid of this thing. This is an issue. They need it gone.
Right. Months on the market, man. Months on the market. Sat there. Just collected days and days and days because nobody was looking at this thing the way it needed to be looked at. They were focused on the mansion.
Yeah.
Right. Focused on the mansion. And the mansion nobody wanted that. It was a completely different deal. So it's just, I mean, it's an interesting perspective. And I think that Like we all gotta really look at this from the, and also, okay. So I bought a sixplex from a multimillionaire who lives around the corner from me that I work out with. We're friends, right? Like we're buddies. I buy a sixplex from him, and he to his knowledge, he thought he had every unit rented out at its maximum potential. This is a fully remodeled sixplex. Okay. He had a property management company come in and rent all the units for $1,200 a month. I knew that the units would rent at $1,800 a month. Okay. I knew that. He didn't. He thought he had maximum rent. It's not my job to educate him, to tell him that, hey, you can rent this for another $500 or $600 or $700 a month. It's not my job to do that. So what happens? He sells me the sixplex. One of the units gets vacant. I rent out the unit for $1,700, and I go and I wholesale that building, and I made a $400,000 profit. And you know what my friend says to me? Good on you. Good job. So what makes him any different from another person? What makes, why are we now deciding who's smarter and who's not, who's better and who deserves? Like, tell me, where do we draw the line? You're mentally competent. You're not drunk. You're not under distress or duress. Okay. You're signing a contract of right, sound mind and body. Get out of here.
Yeah. I like that. Well said. I want to pivot this a little bit. Something that comes up often is, I feel like there's a few ways to look at this. Lipstick on a pig when you're doing flips. I think all y'all do flips in some capacity. What is it? Like, what do you define as lipstick on a pig? And when is it okay? If and when is it okay? Because this means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people are like, it's not my responsibility. I'm going to sell it for whatever I want to sell. What's y'all's take on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about this because this definitely, we've seen this so many times in our market, and I can't stand it. Lipstick on a pig, by flipping definition, is basically you just slap a coat of paint and you cover up all the blemishes and the issues of the house and you try to sell it. We've seen it here from wholesalers so many times. We've unpacked and unwound houses that have had this done so many times that it drives me nuts. We do not do that because, number one, it's not safe. And if you're gonna sell a house that's not safe, then that's unethical, in my opinion. Maybe that's morally unethical, but that is, in some form or fashion, that's unethical. We've seen things where, the electrical panels that should have been changed out not only weren't changed out, but are just rigged up so that, one little issue with a washing machine could light the whole house on fire, with, electrical being out of the walls and, plumbing going every which way that's not in the walls done. I mean, we've seen it all. And, that's something, again, in Texas, there's not a GC license that's required, and it should be required because there's a lot of issues that would force a lot of people to do things a little better way. And I agree. I think that should be something that is done here, because there's, there are so many issues that we have to go in and fix a lot of times that it's not right. And it's, those people aren't going to know, other than inspection, what could happen down the road. But, I could not morally sell a house if I knew that there's going to be a potential for fire right after we close on that deal. That's not how we do things. So.
Interesting. Anybody else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm with Adam. Like, I'm not going to, make a problem for someone else down the road if I know about it, right? Like, if I don't know about it, stuff happens. But if I knowingly know there's an issue and I don't disclose it, like that's not ethical. I mean, the only time you ask like when it would be appropriate, like for lipstick on a pig, I mean, if you're going to hold it as a rental and there's no real safety, like you actually own it, you're going to take care of these problems over time. Or, the same thing, but like a development kind of play, right? Maybe you're going to rent it out for a year of permitting. You don't want to fix it up, rewire it, all kinds of stuff just to tear it down in a year.
In my opinion, real estate photography is already lipstick on a pig. I think that those dang cameras can make anything. You go check out these houses, you're like, oh man, those are great photos.
We got someone in the chat. Ken Arnold, real estate, said, I joined this late. Who's the realtor on the panel? Adam and Lance. Adam, do you have your license, or you guys have an agent on the team?
Yeah, no, I have my license. We also have an agent on the team.
Okay. If anybody,
I'm not licensed.
Okay. If any agents are watching this, feel free to pump in your questions. I'm sure these guys would be happy to answer.
Brady, I've got a little comment on the lipstick on a pig thing. So I'm a fix and flipper. I have a fix and flip television show with Pace Morby on A&E called Triple Digit Flip. We do really, really high end, crazy fun remodels, and we go all out on them. And we always are looking at, how do we maximize profits, of course, but really maximize design, maximize functionality, really, really give the buyer something special here. Fantastic. And our competitors are the people who do lipstick on a pig. So when we're on the market, people are looking at this product, they're looking at my product, and they're similarly priced. And then the buyer has the option to say, I like this pig in a dress, or I like this gorgeous house. But again, that's why you have property inspectors. That's why you have all of these checks and balances throughout the escrow process for a retail buyer, where they get to decide and make educated decisions based off of what comes through reports, what comes through their inspections, what comes from all of the due diligence that they're required to do, that their agents are required to help them do. That's the things that need to get checked off, right? It is not, look, Adam, I totally disagree with people putting crap product on the market that's going to burn down and hurt people. Like that's terrible. Right. But let's just say this. You said, what's lipstick on a pig? I say that's me dressed up in a tuxedo. Okay. Here's what's up. You can put me in a cocktail event. Okay. And I'm in a tuxedo. And then you go put a person who's like got, an Adonis body in a tuxedo. And then people might say, yeah, these guys are pretty similar. One's a little chunkier, but they got great personalities, whatever. I like them both. Okay. Well, let's do a full physical on them. Let's see which one of these two is actually a pig under the tuxedo. Okay. That's the purpose of the doctor, to tell you what my health is. So again, for a buyer, if they're going to go out and buy a house, the purpose of an inspector is to tell you, is this a pig inside or not? Is the electrical right? Is the roof right? Is the plumbing right? Am I going to get into trouble here? We are just making everybody sound so dumb. Where's the responsibility here? Where's the responsibility of the realtors, of the inspectors, of the buyer themselves to be able to see that, look at the shoddy workmanship in this house. Maybe there's a reason why it's $40,000 less than the beautiful one.
Right.
I don't know.
It almost sounds like
we're just removing responsibility from everybody.
Right.
I hear you. Well, earlier you were talking about like part of the answer is we need more educating the newer wholesalers, and I agree with that 100%. But it sounds like you almost need more education for agents and for sellers to say you need to be responsible. You need to be looking at these things before you sell a home, before you go through this transaction.
To that too, Brady, there's realtors right now in the chat, and I'd love to have a poll. Ask them. All of these guys went through licensing. Lancey went through licensing. I have a company, 80 people in my office, all licensed. Okay. And I ask this question constantly when I'm in front of a big group of realtors. You guys went to real estate licensing school. How many of you were taught how to comp?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Right.
Yeah. Well, but here's the issue though, Jamil, and this is what we've run into. Yeah, the real estate agent should catch some things. The inspector, God forbid, they catch a few things. But what they're not going to catch is what's behind the wall, especially after I've taken one wall down, put some things back in there, and then covered it all back up, right?
But that's fraud then, right? So if you're the guy that's doing fraud, that's on you. That's a totally different thing.
Yeah. So a good example is we just finished flipping a house. It was a 50s vintage house, nice old house, a lot of old character, but there was some 200 amp wire going to some of the outlets that they were using. I don't know why. I don't know how. And we could have very, very easily left all that wiring in the walls, in the outlets, and just sold it. The inspector would have never caught it. They plug a hairdryer into that, they're probably suing us.
Right.
We caught it. We took it all out. We redid it all correctly. Nobody would ever know. Nobody ever knew about it. The only people that ever knew about it was my wife, who project managed it, and myself and our contractor. And that's it. But, morally, I sleep good at night knowing we changed that. Nobody will ever see it. They'll never know, but I guarantee you they'll never have an issue with it. And those, that's the part that just, that has to come from within in some of those things, right?
What's interesting to me is, we're talking about, like earlier, we were talking about regulation and should wholesalers have more regulation. I'm over here in Oregon on the highly regulated West Coast, where I'm actually building my own house right now, and they don't allow that you can be a builder owner and not be licensed. I'm not a licensed general contractor, but everybody else has to be. Every other contractor has to be licensed, and the inspections are insane. There's so many different inspections versus states like Texas, or if you're in the Midwest, where it's maybe 1 or 2 inspections. West Coast is just different. I feel like Texas, you should have to be a licensed general contractor. Like that's an issue in itself. Is this just, are you saying, like, I'm not familiar, and I used to live in Texas, but like general contractors, you don't have to carry a license, or are you saying, like, as the agent? No licensing.
No, you don't have to have a license to be a GC, period. Anybody and their brother can be a GC. Yeah, there's no license required whatsoever.
That's a little sketchy.
That's scary. I mean, it really is.
That's a real issue. Maybe I'll stop complaining about Oregon being overregulated. I'd rather have that.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith.
So basically, I'm a Texas GC. Like, anyone can do it.
Absolutely. Welcome.
You are a general contractor in the great state of Texas, Keith. So I got a couple more questions here, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. I know we're getting close to the hour. Anybody want to share, when's the last time you were caused to question your ethics, or where you had an opportunity to deviate from your standard ethics?
I'll take it if no. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. So the question was, where did you have an opportunity to deviate, and
when did you have an opportunity? Yes. When's the last time
I think personally, you have an opportunity to deviate from your ethics all the time.
Almost every
right.
day.
You wake up in the morning and you can deviate from your ethics from the first things you think about, the first things you do, and so personally, I'm consciously making choices where I know that energy is going to return to me in a positive and uplifting way. Right. And that's just it. Right. So I'm looking at myself, and I'm looking at the way that I'm operating in the world, and the way that I'm interacting with people in the world. And this isn't just going to be in a business. This is going to be from, like, how I'm treating my wife from the moment I see her, how I treat my children, the way that I treat my pets, the way that I treat the people that I see on the way to work, the homeless people on the side of the road, the gas attendants, all of them. I mean, ethics is not just about how I make a dollar. Ethics is about, like, who I am as a human being, and like understanding that how we move in the world has an energy associated with it, and that we are responsible for that energy. And then by being responsible for that energy, then when you receive energy back to you, you understand that you're the one who put it there. That's it.
Yeah.
You can't say that any better than that, Jamil. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. And we're at a point with our business where we're growing so fast in terms of lead flow that all of our systems are breaking right now. So everyone's kind of ping ponging all day. We're trying to get it all. It's a great problem to have. It's a problem every business goes through. If you make it that far, right? And I've got and I couldn't have more seller issues right now. I'll be very frank with you, And I get a call Friday night from a lady who we, had under contract. I'm trying to close her this week. We actually close it tomorrow. And she calls me from Wi-Fi McDonald's, and that's the only way her phone works. It's 105 degrees outside. She's like, just letting you know, my electricity's off. So if you need me, text me, and I'll come back to the McDonald's once a day, and I'll check my Wi-Fi, and I'll get back with you. And I'm like, this lady's 75 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, like, Sherry, what do you mean your electricity's off? So I was like, you don't have air conditioning? No, it's fine, Lance. You've done so much for me in buying my house. Let's just get this thing. I was like, hold on. How do we fix it? You can't not have air conditioning,
Not in Texas.
And so And so, as bogged down as I was, and we are as a company, and so, and I'm a father of teenagers, and we've got weekends that we try to make. We all try to operate inside of this beautiful business, right? I drove immediately, got $400 cash out, and here, sign this document. We'll take it out at closing, but let's get this paid, and that's the things you don't compromise as a human being, right? And it's not about bragging that home buying guys, it's $400, whatever, but it's in you, just like Jamil said. And I'm very proud of how we operate our business. We don't win every deal. We don't, but everyone that doesn't choose us is missing out, and some transactions, it's just business. There's no chance to really help anybody. It's just, let's just move on, but we're never not going to be the type of guys that don't stop down to help folks. And I think that's the biggest misconception of, if you're talking ethics, is that because we're buying at a for-profit basis, at a for-profit price point, that we're not taking sellers, goals for their liquidation of their property into mind. I mean, that's where we start, and then I show them on my iPhone calculator exactly where I need this property and how I can fit this price into you achieving your goals, and that's all wholesaling is. And I wish people saw how our living room conversations go, especially the folks that are against it, because it's very fluid. It's very ethical. It's something I'm very proud of. I've sold everything you could sell under the sun. I'll be a sales guy until the day I die. I've never been able to change or impact someone's life the way I've been able to through wholesaling real estate.
And Jamil, we're looking for a show. We're looking for a wholesaling show. So I think we can feature Lance and do well, Jamil.
It's interesting you say that, because I have since the success of ours, we've become very close with our executive vice president at A&E, and I've opened the door to like 4 others that are all now in development, becoming television shows. So if you guys are really, really into it, reach out to me and I can open doors.
Yeah, let's chat. Let's chat about it.
Crystal and Dedrick Polite, also Carrot customers of ours. I believe they were
incredible people, man.
Oh, they're awesome. I love those people. I got 2 questions. One of them, let's make this one really fast. I want to do this just to respect the chat and thank people for being engaged. We'll answer this one real quick, more of a technical one. And then I got one question anybody can answer. We can talk about this as we close it out. Dogalicious. I love your YouTube username, Dogalicious, 2 words. He said, I wanted to ask how the double close work. Does the buyer normally meet the seller before closing? I thought that was the point of the double closing.
I think there might be a little confusion there, but I think what this question it really is like, how does it work for if my end buyer's funds are going to close my A to B contract? I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Is that you guys' understanding what the question is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. And so how that works, man, if it's legal and doable in your state, is it's just a pass through. It's pass through escrow. So your B2C escrow, they acknowledge that their funds are going to be used to close your A to B. Your A to B acknowledges in a document they sign the title that the funds are coming from another escrow. It's really that simple. It's 2 separate files. The people that are a party to the A and B contract should never meet the people that are a party to the B and C contract, other than the fact that there's 2 letters that are the same, right? So the B and the B are going to be in both contracts, if that makes sense. The person buying in the first is going to be the seller in the second. But beyond that, A and C never meet.
Well, thank you. Last question here. Anybody feel free to answer this. We can talk about this for a minute as we close it out. We were talking about, newer wholesalers and, the industry needing more education. I want to set like expectations for new wholesalers. And so my question is, how do you want to see this industry aspiring others to get into this business? Like how does that work? And then, or what does this industry need to make it better? Like, how do you want to see the wholesale and real estate investing industry elevated? What does that look like to y'all?
Well, in my opinion, it just needs home buying guys in every market. I mean, we'll take it over. We got this.
Get a patent the home buying guys business model. Just
got to franchise it, guys. I'll talk to you about that too.
Right.
We're talking about that.
Yeah. But honestly, and Christina, you can probably answer this as well, but it just takes people like this, pillars in our industry, just like every business does. You look at the car business is very similar. You got folks that do it right. And I mean, my mom drives 250 miles to get her oil changed at Sewell in Dallas. And then there's the guys that do it wrong. Right. And so I think we're there. I think I think sellers just need more access to the folks like us. And, we're all spending the marketing dollars, so we rank very high. But it's on us individually.
What do you think, Christina?
Yeah, well said. I mean, there's, like Keith talked on earlier, there's bad apples in every industry. And I think the fact that the internet is where a lot of people go to sell their house now too, and they can see reviews. There's information out there that leaves a trail. If you're doing poor business and screwing people over, it leaves a trail out. And, I think it's really gets down to homeowners needing to do their due diligence so that they know that they're working with somebody who has a track record of treating people right. Then, I really loved a lot of what Jamil talked about, is that we're acting like people are idiots, and that we need to baby baby people throughout this entire process, where there's, personal accountability comes into play. And there's tons of resources now in this day and age for you to know that you are working with the right person who is going to, see the deal through and treat you fairly. And, if someone decides to make stupid choices and go a different route, when oftentimes when you're working with shady people, like, the writing is on the wall and you're choosing to ignore warning signs, people got to be free to make their own decisions. So.
Well said. Anybody else?
I want to add a little thing here for anybody new. If you guys are new and you're getting into wholesale, guys, do yourselves a favor and just learn how to underwrite before you go out there, before you start talking to sellers, before you start, messing around with contracts, before you do anything. Really, really spend some time. Take the first 2 months, 3 months, 6 months of your journey and learn how to underwrite, learn how to comp, learn how to comp, know what potential is, know what forced appreciation is, learn the difference of a buy and hold investor's exit strategy and a fix and flip investor's end goal. Like, understand these things, learn underwriting. If you learn underwriting, you will win the game.
I love that. You don't hear that being talked about. It's usually get your first deal, get your first deal, get your first deal. That's all you hear, I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Usually that's get your first contract, get your first contract. But they got the contract wrong because they didn't know how to underwrite. And then it's falling out and everyone else is mad. The title company learn how to underwrite. Exactly what Jamil said.
Interesting. Adam, any thoughts on this? What do you want to see for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, Christina said it very well. There's so many resources out there. I would just, I would caution everybody to sort of pick a lane and be very, very diligent in learning enough to be very, very, very well educated in that lane, because you can get really scattered in this industry. You can learn how to wholesale 7 different ways, and you can learn how to wholesale nationally and all these different things. And you can be very, very confused in what works and what, and how to do things in a way to be successful. So I would say be very, very targeted on what you want to do, and then learn that process so that you're an expert at that one thing. And like Jamil said, learn everything you need to learn about that. And we did a Carrot Cast episode about this. We tried all the different marketing approaches. We tried 8 of them at one time, and we spent like $40,000 and didn't do a deal our first year, right? We had to pare everything back and learn how to market one particular way to figure out how to wholesale. And then we added everything on from that slowly over time. And so that's my advice. Pick one avenue, one market, figure out how to do that one thing very, very, very well, and then grow from there.
That's good. You wasted 40 grand before you realized carrot was the true answer. That's what you're saying.
No, I had carrot. I already had carrot.
That's funny. All right. Well, Monica has a question. Maybe one of y'all can answer this in the chat since we're out of time. Should wholesalers collect sellers' disclosures and pass them on to the end buyer? I do acquisitions for my employer and he wants to avoid disclosures. Thoughts?
I mean, if you're not an agent, there's no reason to get a disclosure. You're buying it as is for cash. You're doing your own inspection. Why would you need a disclosure? You know, there's no reason for it, personally. If you're an agent, it's a whole nother story.
That makes sense. Cool. Well, thank you for answering that, Adam. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody in the chat. I feel like this is one of those things we could talk about for a long time, but we got families to go to and we got food to eat, you know. Jamil's got to change into his tuxedo, go to the cocktail party.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you all. This has been a blast. Any last words? Any closing thoughts? I feel like you hit the nail on the head.
Keith's shirt says it. Be good to people.
Be good to people.
Literally.
Yeah.
Be good out there.
Yeah, do the right thing all the time. Do the right thing. That's how we kind of live, and that's how we preach. Do the right thing. You'll never have a bad night's sleep if you do the right thing.
And the guys that aren't doing the right thing and doing these unethical, shady, lying, manipulative, those kind of things, they're, you know, it's a small world. I mean, you got the internet, it's a small community. Like they're gonna go by the wayside, right? For the sellers and the buyers. Right. So, you know, it's just their days are numbered.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of Carrot, thank you. On behalf of wholesalers, thank you. On behalf of house sellers, thank you guys for doing what you do. And thanks for being a part of this conversation. Everybody, thank you for joining. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that fancy stuff. Catch our other content, whatever. And everybody have a good night. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye-bye.